gotta fight to win. Fight to win. Fight to win. I'ma say it again. You gotta fight to win. Fight to win. It ain't over till it's over. It's about to begin. I'm so dedicated.
Good morning. Thank you guys for joining and tuning in to Endie Fiya's Monday Motivation. This is your man Causso, the My Struggle is My Strength motivational speaker. I hope that everyone is well. I hope that everyone is staying safe. Thank you to all of the essential workers. Thank you to all the nurses. Thank you to the truck drivers. Thank you for, those individuals that are working at the grocery stores. Thank you guys so much for helping and continuing this process that is very strenuous, but thank you. We really appreciate that. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Endie Fiya for giving me the opportunity to speak. You can tune in to her show at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for music, entertainment, news, and daily inspiration for everyone. You can go to Blog Talk Radio /Endie Fiya. That's ENDIE. Fiya is FIYA. Check it out and tell a friend to tell a friend. All right. So last week, in our series, we discussed the isolation. We talked about how isolation can be very lonely and empty, and how we develop coping mechanisms to normalize ourselves to escape from the isolation. And these things, they tend to make us feel better or help deal with the isolation. However, you must realize that being in isolation or being in this place or season or being in this dark room is for personal development, right? So this week in our trauma series, we will be subsetting it with the title of traumatic change. Traumatic change. Now, I have a feeling that normal as we know it, or the normal before COVID-19, or what we kind of perceived as normal it's over with. I mean, it is a wrap. You feel me? And I think that getting back to normal is what everybody is talking about, right? Somebody asked me the other day, Causso, when do you think we'll return back to normal? And I thought about it. What was normal wasn't really normal. It was just familiar, right? We all want to get back to what was familiar. And the reality is we really don't like change, I mean, let's keep it real. Let's really keep it real. As long as it's business as usual and things are going the way that we would like them to go, we're good, but in reality, change happens all the time. Like every 3 months the seasons change, right? Like every 28 days the cycle of the moon changes. So we experience change all the time. It's just the arduous sudden change that we don't like, because sudden change is traumatic. Because when things are, when there's uncertainty and when things are unclear and things are out of order or abnormal, what we typically do is we make our best efforts to avoid change, and we have this craving to run back to our past, right? To run back to the program of familiarity. And this is not only dangerous, it's addictive, and it's also detrimental. That's why sudden change is traumatic. It can be very, very strenuous accepting it, because when sudden change happens, there isn't any flexibility, and it seems like like everything is set, right? So you kind of feel stuck. And I know this to be true because, being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in my mid-20s, that made change very traumatic for me. I realized that I had to self-evaluate, and I had to make changes within the change, right? Because when things change, your mind has to be the first thing to adapt to the change and be in coherence with it. So, what I had to do was I had to think about what were my abilities. I had to think about how I could do the same thing, prior to my MS diagnosis. I just had to do them in a different way. I also had to make adjustments on the physical scale. I started walking with leg braces. I don't use them all the time, only when necessary. So, what was important for me was to decide the meaning of this traumatic change. What does this mean for me? I had to ask myself, and I had to figure out how I could make the best out of this situation. And many of you might be coping and recalibrating right now and starting the process of restructuring and figuring out your life, due to COVID-19. And you're probably asking yourself, how do I do this? How do I function? How do I make money? Right? So the key to certain change, the key to sudden change is acceptance. This is the first thing. This is the very first thing you must do. You have to realize that you didn't do anything to cause this, and you also have to realize that it's your responsibility to embrace the inevitable, and so you can continue to live your life. I mean, it's even in the first sentence of the Serenity Prayer. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. And that's important, right? Because the quicker you can accept things that you cannot change, the quicker you can move forward. So, as you begin to accept sudden change and as you start compartmentalizing things, you have to place things in the sifter. I'm not sure if you're knowledgeable of this culinary tool. A sifter is a kitchen utensil. It is used to sift dry ingredients, for example, flour. This process, it changes the flour, it aerates it, which makes it lighter, and it produces more volume as a result. So taking the time to self-evaluate and thinking about those things that you need to place in the sifter. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's habits. Maybe it's been certain hindrances of old mindsets or bad planning, or maybe it's people. Only you know what that unnecessary baggage is. You do not want to be the same person you were before Corona. You want to have learned something. You want to be better at doing something. You want to be a better individual all around. You did, so as we're recapping, we understand that change is traumatic, especially when it's sudden change. However, don't run back to what's familiar. You have to accept the change, and you also have to change your mindset. That's imperative. And as you're compartmentalizing things, take those things through the sifting process. This process of aerating changes you to be better, right? So I hope that you have gleaned something from this. I hope that you wrote something down, or you made a mental note. I think that's very important. So I want you guys to join us next week in the continuation of our trauma series. we will be discussing post-traumatic growth. I'm like super excited about this because this is like one of my favorite topics to talk about. Post-traumatic growth, PTG. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you can join us next week. I want you guys to have a phenomenal week. Don't forget to wear your mask. Don't forget to wear your gloves. Don't forget to wear your hazmat suit or whatever you got to protect yourself, because saving lives starts with you.